And so let me share my screen. And so I'll quickly go over like the app description that I shared in the resources. Um, and so this is just a general overview of the overarching project that we'll be working on, like both the finance business side and also the, of course, app development, computer science side. But just to give like a little description of like what the app specifically is. And also feel free to stop me at any time if you guys have like questions or clarifications. But basically, the app itself is meant to be an educational platform that sort of gamifies learning personal finance and investing, and it is specifically targeted towards like young women. So, like, maybe the design, the UX, the sort of like flow of the app is more like user friendly in that sense, and the lessons are more interesting to listen to and will provide like actionable steps for them to take. Because I think that with a lot of the issues that young people run into when they try to start investing is that all those like investing books and resources you find online, they don't really tell you what specifically to do. And so you learn something and then you don't actually do it, and then months go by and you still haven't invested. And so the point of this app is I guess like the key features, the gamified learning experience. So that's just making learning about like personal finance and investing just more fun. Like we would on the app development side, we would sort of program it more in a game-like setting, as in challenges, rewards, sort of allowing the user to create a profile and see their progress, unlocking levels. And then from like the business side, that's like sort of taking your research and what you've like gathered information wise in your resources and creating something that like is actually really interesting to listen to and fun to learn from. And so those are like the step-by-step guides and lessons, providing like users with like a comprehensive and easy to follow lesson within finance. And so these are our two main features. Some extra features, as in, I think that for our app right now, the goal is definitely to try to get something on the App Store as soon as possible. In a sense that once it's up there, we can improve it, we can send updates, we can always add more. But like the basis is probably these two of the lessons and the gamified sort of experience. But we want to push for the App Store as soon as possible because it sort of allows you guys to say like on your resumes and at your interviews, like, yeah, I have a real app on the App Store, and then you can show them like, yeah, you can download it right here. And so I think that that's very impressive for like companies to see, and makes your work like very tangible. And it'll be uh hopefully the app will be very solidified, and even if you work on like a smaller portion of it, they'll see the entire app and be like very, very impressed. So again, it doesn't necessarily matter what level computer science you are. There's always definitely a part that each person can work on. And so the extra features part is the social media integration. So the last part of the app was the idea of having also like a community to reach out to and connect with, because another large part of women not being super interested or like being super encouraged to invest is that they don't really feel like it's an environment that welcomes them. It's a very male centered area. And so if you see a bunch of posts of other women succeeding in investing, when you don't feel like shy or nervous about asking a question, it makes it like a lot easier. And so ideally in the future, we would also incorporate this social media integration. So this is our current UX design. Sorry, that's a little blurry. I didn't know that would come out that way, but basically, this is like the most basic sort of foundation that we had decided on. Because like to push something onto the App Store to have like our most basic sort of parts to it. So you can see here the mission task page. That'll be where you can see your progress and your lessons, the create account page, the lessons page. And so for us specifically, our group, we'll be working on the community page, which is up here, and I'll go into that a bit more in detail soon. But yeah, at the bottom here, you can see our current code base and what we have so far for it that we'll be building off of. But that's just a very general overview. Does anyone have any questions about this before I move on to like front end and back end?
For the languages involved, is there, like, on the computer science side, is there a specific language that we're going to use in the app?
Say that one more time.
On the computer science side, is there specific languages that we would need to touch up on in order
Oh,
to work on?
like what we'll be like coding with?
Yes.
Oh yeah. And so if you look in the project documentation, at the end I give a couple like resources of things to sort of like go through or brush up on. And so for front end, we'll mainly be using like React Native for the front end development. And so I added like a couple like documentations, a Codecademy for it. And I can also like host a couple workshops to get the basics down. And then back end, it'll be we'll be using Firebase. I don't have too much experience with it, but we'll learn together. But yeah, I guess since we're on that subject, I'll go over the front end super quickly. I don't want to run this meeting for too long. I know it's kind of late, but yeah, so for our group specifically, we'll be doing like the community board page development. And so in this like UX design, the community board page is what you'll see sort of when you click on this is the main sort of landing page. There'll be like a little community page button. It'll take you to an area where you can see like other players and other users and their progress. And so front end wise, we'll be wanting to have the interface show the ranking, as in who's gone the furthest, number one, number two, number three, and the progress they've made. And, their like maybe profile picture and a bio. And so being able to show that and deciding, how we want the community board page to look, because right now the UX design, you can see it's like super simple. It just says community board and it just lists out the players. And so we definitely would like to add, more design to it, have it look good, and have it like have a good sort of UX workflow. But here, definitely in your own time, read through this in a bit more detail. I'm just like going over it super quickly. But the main functionality of the community board that we'll be trying to implement over the next 8 weeks is creating user profiles and information, like not creating them, but having them show up, the interaction and engagement. And so that is sort of this is like more additional functionality. I guess the key one is just showing the rank and progress, but the if we have extra time, if we seem to be progressing really well, we can move on to having people be able to like message another person or like make a comment on something. And so that would be really cool. Any questions about the community board page itself? And we can definitely get more into sort of the design next week as well.
For the rankings, are we trying to show like the user's name and their profile, like their short bio, or is it just the name and how many lessons they've completed?
I think that for our main functionality, it would just show the ranking, their process, their progress, and probably like their username and profile. For the additional functionality, like if we have like extra time, but this would be our main goal, then we would add in like bio stuff and allowing users to like click on a profile and see more of it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
And so this goes a little bit more into detail about the project like specifics. And so these are what we'll be trying to focus on developing the UI for the, ignore that, that should say community page, developing the functionality for users to display their progress in a ranked manner, sharing, and this is more like of an additional one, but a big one is also ensuring sort of collaboration between backend and front end, especially for the community page, because being able to show the profiles means that we need to store the profile somewhere and reach that database, take it out, and then show it. And so we'll be working with backend pretty closely. And so some more specific deliverables, you know, the wireframes, the mockups for the design page. I don't know why it says comments, but the code for the front end implementation, making sure that it works on different sized devices. You know, if someone uses the app on an iPad, it doesn't break down or anything. Error handling, validation, and integrating again with the backend API. And so this timeline, this is sort of just a general guide. Definitely if we run ahead of time or behind time, that's okay. You don't need to stress out necessarily about it. We have a decent amount of flexibility, but the important thing is really just to keep good communication and sort of make sure that through this virtual environment, we're still like working together well to move things, as long as things are progressing. I don't think the timeline needs to be super strict, but if we hit sort of like a week where we haven't made much progress, then maybe I would reach out to you guys and sort of make sure that everything's going well. But I would say if you are on the front end team, I think I had sent out specifically the names of people who are on front end and back end. And again, it's still early, so if you change your mind, if you have something else that you'd really want to do, just let me know and we can probably work something out. And so I would say next steps for front end project would be to go through these resources to start brushing up on React Native and preparing ourselves for next week's design and sort of like beginning the front end development. And then for back end, the overview is the same, what the community board page functionalities are. The main thing for back end comparatively to front end is that it'll just be that we'll be working on with like databases, storing data, retrieving data, creating APIs. And so front end will be more like UX mockups, sort of like using JavaScript and React Native to develop the interface, and then the in-between. So the connection between the front end and back end is that we'll need to use the back end to retrieve the data to show on the front end side. And so back end side, we would want to create like a scalable server side infrastructure, meaning that, that we follow good customs so that in the future, if we want to build and expand the app, it won't completely crash. We want to build a good foundation for the community board functionality. And let me see, RESTful APIs, that's sort of just like a standard for creating APIs that will go over, if you're on the backend side, comprehensive testing, optimization, integrating, just the backend with the front end for seamless like data transfer. And the main objective for the backend team is to implement the functionality to display the users and their progress in like a ranked manner. And so I think there are more objectives for the front end, but backend has mainly just this one objective, because I think that this might like learning sort of Firebase together and understanding backend might take a bit longer for us to go through together. And so I didn't want to put too many objectives here. But if we do end up going pretty fast, then we can try some of these out of scope actions. But the timeline for this, again, is not super strict, but it's more that we want to make progress along the way and keep moving forward. And so here is an article about backend development in general, some good practices for app development backend specifically. And we'll be working on Firebase. And so if you're on the backend team, I would suggest like just walking through the Firebase documentation so that next week it'll just run a little bit more smoothly when we talk about it together. And then lastly, the business project documentation. And so for anyone who is a combo program, meaning that like they're computer science and business, or a business program, you guys will also be part of the business side. As in, if you are a combo, you'll most likely have a front and back end team and also be part of the business team, but you'll just probably have a smaller sort of project or task for the front and back end side, so you aren't feeling too overwhelmed with work. But a brief overview of what the business project looks like. The main goal for business, this business project documentation, is to sort of create elaborate and extensive research on a chosen sort of like area within finance or business that you're personally interested in, and to use that to develop a sort of research experiment. It can be like a survey, it can be something statistical. It's sort of up to your creative freedom on that. And then secondly, to create informative lessons and sort of like portraying that information that you've researched in a specifically chosen way. And so here I give a bunch of different potential research topics. There are so many more. And so if there's something that's not on the list that you're interested in, just let me know. As long as it's approved by, the mentor, then we can move forward. And here it goes into a bit more detail of the responsibilities and sort of like a chronological order. So after you select your topic, then you'll begin research and resource compilation. So you'll use different sort of platforms of, research articles, of news like platforms, anything that's like a reliable source of documentation. to compile your findings, to find a bunch of reliable resources that can help you then continue the rest of your project. And so after that, it'll be the creative content creation. You can choose a specific form of your liking. This can be a research paper, a video, a book, infographic, et cetera, and with each one, we'll do our best to support you to like the very end, in a sense that if you choose research paper, we'll be trying to, you know, see if we can get that into publication, see what we can do with that. If it's a book, same, we can see how can we get this publicized, how can we like push this further. If it's a podcast or TikTok, we can see like how can we like grow this platform in a sense. And so that's sort of like the creative content component. And then the survey research experiment is more just like an extension of your research to sort of add sort of your own personal touch, give you something to talk about also resume wise, and provide insights. I think it'll be a really interesting part to sort of, you know, if you survey students, that would be very cool. It doesn't have to be a long survey experiment, but we'll sort of help walk you through building that. And then lesson development, these lessons will be used on the app. And so that's sort of the connection between the business and the overarching project, is that we'll be utilizing the resources, the lessons that you create. And then you can also say like, hey, I created lessons for this app to use, like they use my material, and that'll be something very cool to talk about. And it's very important for the business project side to also collaborate with the front end and back end to, you know, make sure that their content is able to be uploaded onto the app. And so this is the general timeline for the business project. And I included some resources that are pretty good for starting research. And yeah, that is, I think I'm right on time. We have 3 minutes before the end of this meeting per se, but I know I went through that a little bit fast, but I would say next steps for each of the 3 is to definitely, if you haven't already, read through the entire document, ask me any questions like through Discord that you have, look through the resources, and I would say also for try your best to follow the timeline. For me as a mentor, it is not necessarily like each mentor and their group. It's not the mentor's responsibility to, you know, walk you step by step through the entire project. We give like the general guidelines. We're there to help and support and make sure that you're feeling like good about it and not lost. But you know, ideally, I'm not going to be sort of like, hey, did you make sure to do this, this, and that? I'll definitely send reminders and, you know, especially at the beginning until we get into a groove. But I would say try to follow the timeline as closely as possible. So if you're in business, look into topics. If you're in back end, start familiarizing yourself with Firebase. If you're in front end, do that for React Native. Any questions?
For the project, if let's say we are on one of the teams, will we work with our group members or do we work on trying to figure out how each section works separately?
Yeah, and so the team portion was created so that you guys feel like, you know, a little less alone in the process. It might feel a little bit more daunting to just have like the entire like front end by yourself or like even a portion of it. And so then if you run into a bug or a problem, you can reach out to the other members on your front end team and be like, hey, I don't know what's happening. And then they'll have like a good amount of experience with that area too, so that they can help. But it's honestly up to you guys for how you want to collaborate. You guys will be working on different sections of like the front end. Like for example, you might be on the front end team with other people, but you guys won't necessarily be working on the same task together. You'll most likely have different tasks, but so because that way you don't have to, wait for the other person's schedule. You can work more individually too, and then you can collaborate when you guys do have time and help each other out. But I would say individual tasks, but both of you guys will probably have a good understanding of React Native, so there will be collaboration. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
And we will go over more of what those specific tasks are in this upcoming week. Right now, the focus is to sort of build that knowledge base and sort of get yourself familiarized, making the transition into starting the project a little easier. All right. Well, thanks guys for hopping on this late call, but I hope that you guys have a nice night. Definitely, if any questions come up, let me know. I'll try to put this recording up somewhere. Not sure if I can send recordings through Discord, but yeah, if you guys need anything, just let me know. I'm here for you.
I think what you could do is maybe upload it to Google Drive or something, because Discord has a limit of like, I think it's 8 MB.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been using Dropbox for the like lecture or the speaker recording, so maybe I'll just make a little folder for our group and put it in there. But yeah, I will stop the recording here then.